Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to PM Square's annual reInvent recap. We're bringing you all the latest and greatest that we learned about at reInvent this year. So first, we'll do a quick round of intros and we'll jump into it. I'm Chris Chapman, Cloud Practice Lead here at PM Square. Andreea?
Andreea Stanovici, one of the solutions architects at PM Square.
I'm Rupak Gautam, and I'm one of the solution architects here at PM Square.
Great. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. So I know we've been going to reInvent for a number of years now. It changes every year. There's always different themes. I know we'll get into some of the tech themes in a minute, but I know, Andreea, just being on the floor on the Expo, is there anything you noticed that a little different from this year versus other years, different swag or any other fun stuff you might have seen?
I think that over the years, not just AWS, but in general, very heavy and very big focus on AI. But what that did lead to, that I noticed that there were more creative games and things of that sort. So even on the Expo floor, there was one competition where it was guess the prompt used to generate that the Gen AI used for an image. And so you really had to rack your brain. And there were more guessing games of that sort, I think, just due to the nature of Gen AI. So I did notice that, and that also fell in line with a lot of the new companies that I also saw at the Expo, very big AI focus. So I think that was one much more evident difference than in the past years, aside from the sheer number of people. I do think last year there were roughly 75,000, and I heard that this year we're closer to 90,000. So you could definitely tell there were a lot of people, understandably.
It definitely felt busy, and the games are fun. It's one good way to put all those NVIDIA chips to use. Having fun games to distract you at conferences, so that's good. Data and AI. I know. I mean that was my big takeaway as well. I obviously that's. Data has always been present. In the last few years, AI has been the center stage. It does feel like, at least looking at a lot of the announcements they had, a lot of different enhancements to services, it was starting to vertically integrate the different platforms. I don't know about you. I know one of the feedbacks you hear about AWS is it's great, everyone likes using it, but you have to stitch a lot of things together. And from what I saw with all the announcements is they're trying to eliminate those barriers. I don't know, Rupak, do you have any thoughts on that? Things that you saw from some of those announcements?
So this reInvent was very amazing. Like Andreea mentioned, like it was more focused on Gen AI and data and AI. So one of the things that I saw was the evolution of, or the introduction of the Lakehouse, which is fantastic because now everything is all unified and all the data source is pretty much in one platform. So basically it helps you, creating all the models, which earlier was very difficult not difficult, but it was a little time consuming, right? It was difficult to get, not difficult, but as I said, it was very tedious to get data sources from different platform, like whether it's in your S3 bucket or in your Redshift. But now with your unified solution, it's pretty much easier. It will be pretty much easier to create your models using Lakehouse. That is one of the biggest takeaways that I've seen this reInvent. Also, the introduction of the S3 tables, which is pretty exciting, I think, especially with some of the use cases that we're already working on, right? So it will be pretty handy for us as well. So,
well, and just I want to touch on both those things. Both those were big announcements. I think the you're talking about Lakehouse, the SageMaker Lakehouse specifically.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and I know with that, lots of hooks into Redshift. I think before you hear Lakehouse, AWS stuck for a lot of years on, and this goes to the not needing to stitch things together anymore. The Lakehouse patterns, very popular. You have S3, you have Redshift, you have Athena, different ways you can work with that. But yeah, now vertically integrating into that one unified stack, and it also goes into the current, the evolution, I think, over the last few years of reInvents and announcements of zero ETL. I know they started that trend last year with I think they announced it with Aurora and Postgres to be able to integrate with Redshift. And they I'm trying to remember the timeline. Dynamo quickly followed. They've had others, but when you look at the announcement for Lakehouse, it features a lot of that. You're not having to move your data in Redshift. You're not having to manage the movement of data, which, I mean, I know we've built all these systems, right? How much time and dev cycles can we waste just making sure data gets from point A to point B, and knowing that it got there? I mean, just eliminating that is a huge time save for anyone trying to deploy these platforms.
Exactly, it is a huge time save, right? I mean, your data lives in one place. You can query all the data instantly, so it's a win.
Okay. You was going to talk about it a little later, but we can jump into it now. Manage Iceberg tables. So
yes,
we're all excited, a bunch of data nerds. Why would non-data nerds be excited for this announcement? What's special about this?
So think about if you have a large data scale, right? I mean, large data sets in a data lake. With earlier, it would be just files. You'll have to query the files. But now with the S3 data tables, with managed Iceberg tables, it'll give you under the hood, it'll give you a format like data tables. So now you can actually query the data in a format of data tables, which is more optimized. Also, the other format is the historical data. So if you want to query the data that's historical from your e-commerce perspective, for example, what was your sales, particularly in last year, or the data that has been deleted, that's also can be easily queried. And from the optimization perspective, it has like a manifest files, right? So manifest JSON files and manifest files. So basically, it helps you to query the data in such a format. It's basically optimize your performances, and it's pretty much straightforward now. Instead of just going into your files, it gives you basically the format of data tables, which is easier to integrate with Athena, Redshift. So which is I think it's easier for non-data people who don't have to understand the unstructured part of the data. Now you have on the base, you have a table structure, so that helps you create like a optimize your data also and integrate with different analytical services.
Yeah, I mean, for years, right? It's linear data in S3. You have you can query it there, work within that data lake.
Right.
But the barrier, I think, is the structure.
Exactly.
If you're using SQL tools, you need to have some kind of structure there. You can go through Athena, Glue data catalog, but this goes down to the actual storage. Now it treats it as an actual table. Right. And then I mean, you listed off all the different compute options. Really, any compute platform then can hit it and treat it as any standard table, rather than having to go through an intermediary or some kind of catalog to provide that structure.
Yep.
Yeah, that I know we have a number of projects, and I know just again, the eliminating that friction. That seems to be the big trend. Eliminating the friction with the data, allowing it to just get in the platform that we can just work with instead of having to constantly move and transform again and again and again to get it in the right place in the right state. I know that's always been the headache. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. As you've said, I think a number of our clients can leverage something like this right away because they're already trying to use it in a similar way. But this just streamlines it. It makes it a lot quicker to adopt. So I know we spoke, and I think similar. You look at the rest of the data and AI landscape with things like Bedrock or Neptune, similar kind of patterns that we saw with some of the others. And I know, talking to you, I know one of the big trends you saw was around GraphRAG, and there were a number of announcements with that. So I know Neptune was one of the first ones. Do you want to take us through what that looked like?
Yeah, so alongside, because I just mentioned just going over the overall themes that at least I had noticed at reInvent across the board between the expos and also just different sessions. So there also seemed to be a much larger focus on graphs as a data store, with a more particular lens focused on GraphRAG specifically, and the different ways you can use GraphRAG, whether that's just regular GraphRAG, graph enhanced RAG, or just using it as a data store. So there was also the announcement of Neptune Analytics being used for graph enhanced RAG, and I actually got to attend one of the workshops, which hearing announcements and reading about them is one thing, but being able to do a lot more hands to keyboard and going through the different steps is pretty neat. And Neptune Analytics was, I would say, at least in my experience, was pretty impressive, and everything that you could just get set up very, very quickly. Also regarding Neptune Analytics, this ties back to a lot of the announcements with Bedrock, because there are a lot. They've done a lot that they just recently announced, and quite a few of them are focused on knowledge bases and what Bedrock knowledge bases now offer. So Bedrock does support fully managed GraphRAG with Neptune Analytics. So you can do RAG. I think right now it's still in preview, but you can still at least dip your toes in, get a sense of what that is like. And you can generate and store vector embeddings in Neptune Analytics, and also have the graph representation of the entities and the relationships. So that is really a big shift that we've seen a lot of adoption for as well. And alongside that, even just looking at Bedrock knowledge base in general, now they also, you can process multimodal data. So that includes visual, text, audio, images. There's just a lot there that previously was not supported, which also includes structured data retrieval, which is pretty cool. So you can use just natural language querying to retrieve structured data in addition to the previous unstructured data as well. And it uses Redshift as the query engine, but that just really enables a lot of applications to access business intelligence just through conversational interfaces. And then beyond that, what another component of Bedrock that was released was Bedrock Data Automation, which enables developers to automate the generation of insights from the unstructured multimodal content. And so that's just taking it one step even further. And so that way it's not just processing and storing all of that data, but rather you can ask a lot of questions about it and generate insights. So that was also a pretty big release that I think was really, really interesting and neat to just get to see.
Yeah, I want to drill in on the Bedrock enhancements, but going back to Neptune. So Neptune Analytics. So how does that fit within an AI stack? If you were going to want to adopt something like a graph to enhance your RAG, what is that doing within that stack?
So there are a few different ways that you can leverage Neptune, whether, again, you just want to use it as a graph data store. So you're just storing your data in a graph database, or if you want to use it, and in that case, users would be able to ask a question. You would potentially have a large language model that would translate that natural language question into a query, into a graphing query language. So that way you could query the graph directly, or you could leverage it to store your data similar to a vector database, but quite a bit different, because there's a much larger focus on the relationships as opposed to purely just semantic search. And so that is one key component as well. And then if you have both layered in together, which is also where Neptune Analytics comes in, you're not just strictly asking who, what, where questions, but rather you can take it several steps further, and you can group together some of the just graph data alongside some of the vector semantic search within that graph data. So you have different types of data stored in different formats, all within that same graph that can work together, which really provides a pretty enhanced, advanced GraphRAG solution.
Yeah, so the end result giving more context to the LM that's going to try to process it, hopefully eliminate hallucinations, provide more accurate results. I know that's something, obviously, I think everyone is working to resolve, and I know it's one of our key focuses with all of our AI projects. So you mentioned a lot of data there. data movement. So that's something else. Is that you have to do that outside? Is that done with Glue or Lambda, or are there data movement tools now within Neptune to facilitate that?
Neptune has a lot of integrations. So one very common architecture using Neptune Analytics and using GraphRAG is also with using Llama Index. And if all of the data is stored in S3, you have a connector so you can issue one copy file from Llama Index within your application and just import that all into Neptune pretty painlessly. So there are definitely plenty of integrations Neptune Analytics works with. Yeah.
That's reducing that friction is still the trend across the board.
Definitely speeds up the process.
Yep. So the enhancements to knowledge bases I know are interesting. So you said the graph, I'm assuming that works similar to how knowledge bases are now. You create a open search serverless, you can point to it. Is built in natively now to Bedrock?
So for the graph, yes, you would be using Neptune, and then you would select one of the large language models to be able to translate the question into a query that would then be issued to Neptune.
Okay. The structured data it sounds simple, but to me gets really excited, because I think what we've seen, so my clients say so much has been focused on all the unstructured. But at the end of the day, there's a bunch of structured data out there that still needs processing. People still need it. They still need their classical analytical numbers. How much did we sell of last year or last month? And it does always seem strange, like, well, why can't the model go out and do that? But you need some kind of query engine. You need some, it's relational data. You need kind of a SQL style engine to do that. So it's great that they've added that native support. And so you're saying, so this is using Redshift on the back end as that query engine?
Yep.
Do you need Redshift deployed, or can it use Redshift serverless?
Both, provisioned or serverless.
Awesome.
So
that's great to know. Good. Love the flexibility.
Well, the other really interesting bit that they also released was within Bedrock was just intelligent prompt tuning. So that way, if you're also using a suite of different models within the same family, you can leverage that particular feature where it can determine the best large language model within that family to issue that to. So for example, if you're using a Bedrock agent and you're trying to answer a much simpler query, for example, where you don't necessarily need to route it through one particular channel, then you can use a chatbot, just one of the foundation models that was enhanced for chatbot purposes. So it's just much faster. It doesn't need as much complex reasoning for that query. And so that also can significantly reduce costs and also speed up a lot of those workflows as well. So you could use that with the structured data or just in a variety of other use cases as well.
Cost management is great. Yeah, having that built in is great. I'm sure a bunch of people's ears perked up, being able to save costs, and having a traffic up there to be able to intelligently, select the model is huge. I mean, we've seen it before in our testing. I mean, I know we always try to start with the smaller models. One for cost, but I think performance. They can often provide nearly the same level of accuracy, but a lot quicker because they're smaller. And it can be challenging to always know that balance, especially if you're in a live application that users may be asking a whole host of different things and different requirements that could really help automate that balancing act for you, so you don't have to manage that on your own. Data automation. So this, you said a lot, and there's a lot in this release. The multimodal, document processing, they pumped a lot in here, but also I think really useful. And this is, I think, another place where, because if you go through a lot of what you said, I think that there are other AWS services out there that might do this, that do some of these, but we're seeing that consolidation down into Bedrock as that hub for these AI workloads. So is for the data automation, is the focus here really just being able to process those different multimodal type data sets to be able to execute on those? What is that the underlying goal of the services you see it, or where do you see this fitting in a larger stack for AI?
No, I definitely think that's where it does have a place, and it also just really helps different organizations build RAG workflows very, very quickly, very cost effectively. Just kind of go, especially one other theme that I saw for reInvent was really not just Gen AI and AI in general, but rather the adoption of that as well. And so I've also noticed a focus on that even with data automation, because you also have certain guardrails that are already included in that, such as visual grounding and confidence scores. And that plays a very big role in, again, an organization's willingness to adopt the solution and also users' trust in that. So we do see certain features and components even within the data automation feature there. But it does seem as though, yeah, they're heavily expanding their different offerings for different types of data to really try to bring it all into one and to have it be more funneled, so that way if you have any question, you really are not facing the same limitations with all of those different data silos, different types of data, different format. It's really much easier to work with, and that significantly reduces the time, the cost to just get set up and begin testing and seeing how you can leverage a lot of these new features and tools without necessarily breaking the bank or having to dedicate a very significant amount of time just to get up and running to try it out.
Yeah, it's really great to see just fewer places to go within AWS to do these things. I mean, it's nice because it's easier on us, but I think for organization, it would just go back. I think what I said before, it really can. It allows for efficiencies, allows for less cycles wasted doing really low hanging fruit of even with these managed services, still having to string them together, having to have connectors, having to make sure it's talking, moving data, having a lot of this done for you now. Just you can really build a lot faster and more efficiently using these tools, which is great from AI data perspective. So, one of the things I know we've been working with a number of clients this year, and I wanted to get a touch base on Rupak is Q. So I'm sure Q was talked about. I know it was.
Yeah.
So what's the latest from Q's? I know last year coming out of reInvent, there was they were repositioning it and taking outside of a quick site, make it more organizational wide. So where have they evolved Q today?
I am so amazed with how Q has evolved in such span of time, right? So one of the few announcements that I'm very excited about is one is the integration with SageMaker. So basically, you can just have a natural language integrate SageMaker canvas, upload the data, and create training models and predict the models. That is one thing that I'm very excited about, and looking forward in 2025 to work with SageMaker Canvas and Q integrations. The other few things that I am excited is if you go back only a couple of months ago, if you and I did a Q webinar, right? So where Q for Developer webinars, where I was trying to create a test case or debug the code. But now they have in the Q for Developers, they have these agents where you can actually it'll give you an option, just a feature that is available right now, which allows you to debug and create the test documents or test scripts and the documentation, which is pretty time saving for me, especially for me, and lots of developers out there as well, I guess. The other one is the remediations, or it helps you to remediate or investigate your operational issues, right? So for example, if it integrates with your CloudWatch logs, and it understands your infrastructure, and then it will help you it will help you understand what your alarms are, and then also help you debug that issues or that turn off that alarm. So that are the few features that I've seen this year. Another one also is the integration with Lambda function. Um, pretty handy, I think, for lots of developers out there.
What do you mean integration with the Lambda function? Is that the code within the Lambda?
Yes.
You're generating the function?
Yes. So basically, again, similar to what you do with Q for developers, but now it helps you create the Lambda function itself in the IDEs, which is a new feature in the advanced feature that they have in Lambda functions, right? So create the function itself and debug, similar to Q for developers, but that's also now its Q is so much powerful in this particular era where it has been integrated with lots of services.
Yeah, and I think with obviously there's a lot of coding assistants out there. I think the real power here, if you're a heavy AWS shop, you have your application, a lot of your workloads are deployed there. Yeah, the deep hooks into the larger ecosystem with Q. Yeah, like you said, being able to be aware of the infrastructure. If you're deploying the Lambda, I mean, being able to build that, but being able to deploy Lambda if you're deploying to containers, being able to understand the security groups, the networking that's going underneath there. I mean, those are all troubleshooting things. I think every developer, you got to get your hands a little bit dirty with the infrastructure when you're deploying this. So having someone there that can help and expedite that in the form of Q is another place to gain efficiencies with the work. So yeah, it's great to see. Yeah, the deeper they build in those integrations, I'm always excited to see that because especially with us, doing a lot of work on AWS, it just makes everyone a little quicker, a little more efficient to use a tool like Q.
No, absolutely. I mean, I know we've been using lots of services with Q here at PM Square, right? So seeing it evolve from generative BI to lots of helping as a code assistant, it's pretty exciting.
It is. All right. So now moving on to the next hour. we could probably do a few more hours. Obviously, there's a lot there, but that I think that really covers the bulk of what we wanted to. Just going over some of the key trends and features that we saw around data and AI and some of the core services, and really that consolidation and AWS really building those stacks vertically to more tightly integrate. So that's what we've seen. So just from everyone at PM Square, thank you for joining. We hope this was helpful for everyone looking to get a little news from the reInvent world. And thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.